You know, we have had a gentleman with us all of this week. And the thing that's nice about doing a show like this, where you have a co-host or a co-hostess that you can spend 5 days with, you can go out and have lunch with them, take them to dinner, whatever. You really get to know the person. And this is one of the most delightful gentlemen we've ever had on our show. And for you gentlemen sitting here in our audience, you're not going to be too choked up. But the ladies, when he walks out, I wanted to tell you, here now is Cesar Romero. You went over to see Sammy Davis last night, didn't you?
I sure did, and he puts on a great show.
Oh, he's a great entertainer.
He was just wonderful. Say, this has been the most wonderful week, Mike. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you. And you know, when I asked you, I saw Cesar in Indianapolis. I was doing a concert the week of the Memorial race.
And they had the races.
And I saw him at a cocktail party with Skitch Henderson, and I couldn't wait till everybody walked away so I could say, why don't you come and spend a week with us? And you know what he said? What will I do? 5 90-minute shows. You know what I said? Just sit there and let them look at you, Cesar.
I was still wondering about it when I got here, you know.
These ladies are very inquisitive, and they want to know things about you, Cesar. And yesterday we talked a little bit about friends of yours and things, but we don't know enough about your background. Now, you were in the service, weren't you?
In World War II?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
What branch?
I was in the Coast...
I didn't think you'd have made World War I.
No, I was in the Coast Guard.
Why the Coast
Yes,
Guard?
and don't let anybody tell you it's called the Shallow Water Navy, because that's not true. Believe me, I know. I'll tell you why I enlisted in the Coast Guard, because I knew I was going to get drafted if I didn't enlist in something, and I didn't want any part of the Army, you know. I didn't like the looks of those foxholes, the pictures you saw in the paper, hardly at all. And I had a few friends of mine that were in the Coast Guard, and they had great duty, you know. They were all on private yachts that had been taken over by the Coast Guard, and they were going up and down the coast from San Francisco to San Diego, you know, and it was great. They had liberty every night, and I said, you know, that's for me. So I went down to Long Beach, and I put my hand up, and I enlisted, you know, and I went up to boot camp up right outside of San Francisco, and my friend Richard Quine, Dick Quine, went up there with me.
Yes.
He was an actor then. Now he's one of the top directors in motion pictures. And Dick and I went all through boot camp together, and at that time he was engaged to marry a lovely young actress by the name of Susan Peters, which I'm sure everyone remembers. And when we had our first leave, we went back to Los Angeles, and Dick and Susan were married, and Bill Asher, Elizabeth Montgomery's husband, and I were both best men. You know, Dick didn't want to hurt the feelings of either one of us, so we were both best men. And during the wedding reception, when we were all having a fine time, I had a phone call from one of my buddies in San Francisco, and he said, I thought you'd like to know that your orders have come through and you're being shipped out. And I said, I've got my yacht. You see?
Right up and down the
Sure. So I was sent to New York, and I sat on a lovely place called Ellis Island for about 2 months while they were commissioning my yacht. And my yacht turned out to be an attack transport called the USS Cavalier, the APA-37. And before I knew it, we were steaming in on Saipan the first day of the Marianas invasions, and the bombs were dropping, and the guns were going, and the LCVPs were being blown out of the water. And I just looked up and said, oh, dear Lord, whatever happened to my yacht? That's how I... But I tell you something, I wouldn't swap that experience for anything in the world.
Were you wounded or injured?
No, we were a very lucky ship. We lost very few men. And the ship was finally hit in the Philippines, but she didn't sink. She was towed back. And
how long were you on this?
She's still going. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go to a party for the old Cavalier on sometime in December down in San Diego.
You know, yesterday you talked briefly about your friendship with Tyrone Power. You were also a very good friend of Henry Fonda's.
Well, I've known Henry for a long time.
What kind of a fellow is Henry?
I've never met him. He's quite a guy, and certainly a wonderful actor. But when I first knew him, of course, he wasn't known at all. As a matter of fact, I met him here in Philadelphia. I was playing the lead in the road company of a play called Strictly Dishonorable, and we were playing here at the old Broad Street Theater, which, of course, doesn't exist anymore. It's a parking lot now. And our understudy in the company, the girl that understudied my leading lady, was Margaret Sullivan, who, of course, later became a great star in the theater and motion pictures. And she always used to talk about my boyfriend, Hank. My boyfriend, Hank. It was Hank Fonda. So one day she came in and she said, my boyfriend, Hank, is coming down to see me. So one day, Hank Fonda arrived. very much the way he is today, tall and gangly, you know. And we had a green room in back of the theater, and the dressing rooms were all around this green room. And my mother happened to be visiting me for a week at that time here in Philadelphia, and I was in the dressing room one day, and I heard my mother give out with this horrible scream, and I came running out to see what had happened. And what had happened was that Henry Fonda had walked through the green room, walked up this flight of stairs in front of my mother, and at the top of the flight of stairs was an open sort of a fire exit with a fire escape. And Henry had leaned back on the fire escape, and the last thing that my mother saw of Henry Fonda was his heels going over backwards.
He fell off of this?
He went over backwards off the fire escape. So, of course, we all went running out the stage door to you know, expecting to find Hank with his brains bashed out or something, and we bumped into him walking in, you know. He turned a complete somersault backwards. And he landed on his feet, and he didn't even sprain his ankle. If he'd landed on his head, the world would never have heard of Henry Fonda, or Peter Fonda, or Jane Fonda.
Must have a pretty good understanding of it. You know, Cesar, there's a song that is a special favorite of mine, and I happen to know that a lot of people around the country love this song. And I wanted you to just take the lyric and recite it for me. It's called September Song.
Well, this show is full of surprises.
Yeah, well, it is, but I just have a feeling that this is...
Well, as long as I don't have to sing it.
Okay.
When I was a young man, courting the girls, I played me a waiting game. If the maid refused me with tossing curls, I let the old earth take a couple of whirls as I plied her with tears in lieu of pearls. And as time came around, she came my way. As time came around, she came. Oh, it's a long, long way from May to December, but the days grow short when you reach September. When the autumn weather turns the leaves to flame, one hasn't got time for the waiting game. Oh, the days dwindle down to a precious few. September, November, and these few precious days I'll spend with you. These precious days I'll spend with you.
Very lovely.